Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Fractured Foundations. The call from Westlake Children's Hospital came at 3:17 a.m., jolting Ryder Mercer from a restless sleep. Mr. Mercer, it's Dr. Patel. Your son's fever has spiked to 104. We need to run more tests. Ryder was already pulling on clothes before the call ended. He glanced at the empty space beside him in the king-sized bed. The third night his wife, Natalie, had been working late. As CEO of Mercer Security Solutions, a company specializing in high-end security systems for corporate and private clients, Ryder had built an empire on protecting others. Yet somehow, he'd failed to secure what mattered most. His 6-year-old son, Lucas, had been admitted 3 days ago with mysterious symptoms that had doctors baffled. Persistent fevers, unexplained bruising, fatigue that seemed to worsen whenever Natalie was his primary caregiver. Ryder's Tesla cut through the empty streets of Portland. Rain pelted the windshield as his mind replayed the increasing fractures in his decade-long marriage. The late nights. The password changes on Natalie's phone. The curious way Lucas flinched when his mother entered the room. At 38, Ryder Mercer was an imposing figure, 6'2", with obsidian eyes that unnerved his business competitors. Before founding his company, he'd spent 8 years in naval intelligence, specializing in threat assessment and elimination. Those who knew him well understood one fundamental truth. Ryder protected what was his with unwavering dedication, and he never, ever forgave betrayal. Dr. Patel met him in Lucas's room, concern etched on her face. His symptoms don't align with typical childhood illnesses, she said quietly. And there's something else. The bruising pattern, it's concerning. Concerning how? Ryder's voice was controlled, dangerous. The placement and progression suggest they might not be accidental. She hesitated. Mr. Mercer, we've initiated a standard protocol review. Hospital security has been monitoring Lucas's room when staff isn't present. Ryder's jaw tightened. You suspect abuse. It wasn't a question. We're investigating all possibilities, Dr. Patel replied diplomatically. Lucas stirred, his small frame dwarfed by the hospital bed. Ryder moved to his son's side, gently smoothing back sweat-dampened hair from his forehead. Dad, Lucas's voice was weak, his eyes fever-bright. I'm here, buddy. Not going anywhere. Is Mom coming? Fear flickered across the boy's face. No, just me tonight. Ryder watched his son visibly relax at this information, another piece of evidence in a puzzle he'd been subconsciously assembling for months. After Lucas drifted back to sleep, Ryder called Natalie. Lucas's condition has worsened, he said flatly when she answered. I took a sleeping pill, she slurred. Can't drive. You handle it. Where are you? A pause. Home, obviously, but Ryder had installed the security systems in their Lake Oswego mansion himself. He knew the distinct acoustic signature of their master bedroom. Wherever Natalie was, it wasn't home. I'll stay with him tonight, Ryder said, ending the call before temptation led him to reveal his suspicions. He settled into the recliner beside Lucas's bed, opening his laptop to remotely access his home security system. The footage confirmed the mansion was empty. Switching to the GPS tracker he'd recently installed in Natalie's car, a precaution born from mounting distrust, he located her vehicle parked outside a luxury apartment complex in the Pearl District. The address belonged to Harrison Vaughn, Natalie's personal trainer, a man who had been in their home countless times, who had high-fived Lucas and accepted Ryder's hospitality. Ryder closed his laptop, his expression unchanged. But inside, something cold and calculating awoke, a part of himself he'd carefully contained since leaving naval intelligence. He looked at his son's fragile form and made a silent promise. Whoever had hurt Lucas would pay. And if Natalie was involved, their betrayal would be met with a reckoning beyond imagination. As dawn broke, Nurse Amara Phillips stopped by to check Lucas's vitals. You stayed all night, she observed, her kind eyes assessing both father and son. I always will, Ryder replied. Something in his tone made Amara study him more carefully. The night shift mentioned that Lucas seems to improve when you're here and deteriorate when his mother visits. Does he? Ryder's voice was neutral, but his eyes sharpened. Just an observation, Amara said cautiously. Dr. Patel has ordered toxicology screens. We should have results soon. After she left, Ryder messaged his company's head of security, Miguel Torres. Need deep background on Harrison Vaughn and comprehensive surveillance package. Priority Alpha. The reply came instantly on it. Personal or business? Ryder looked at his sleeping son. Personal. Extreme discretion required. Chapter 2. The Monitor. 3 days passed with Ryder rarely leaving Lucas's side. When he did, it was only after ensuring hospital security had eyes on his son's room. Natalie visited sporadically, always rushing, always distracted. On the fourth night, Lucas's condition mysteriously deteriorated again after Natalie's afternoon visit. The toxicology reports remained inconclusive, though Dr. Patel noted the presence of substances that warranted further investigation. Ryder was dozing in the hospital room recliner when Nurse Amara gently touched his shoulder. Mr. Mercer, could I speak with you outside for a moment? In the hallway, her professional demeanor was overlaid with unmistakable tension. Something came up on the night monitor, she said quietly. Hospital policy requires me to show this to the attending physician, but I wanted you to see it first. She led him to a small security room where a technician sat before multiple screens. With a nod from Amara, the technician played footage from Lucas's room, timestamped from the previous afternoon during Natalie's visit. The moment Ryder saw what was on screen, he gasped. Without hesitation, he called the police. The footage showed Natalie waiting until Lucas was alone, then removing something from her purse, a small vial. With practiced efficiency, she added drops to Lucas's water cup, mixed it with his spoon, and held it to his lips. Within 20 minutes, Lucas was vomiting violently. We've secured the cup, Amara said, and Dr. Patel is ordering a more extensive toxicology panel. Ryder's face had become a mask of cold fury. How long has this been happening? We only installed the specialized monitoring yesterday, after the toxicology showed anomalies, Amara explained. But based on the pattern of his symptoms, she didn't need to finish. Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a form of abuse where a caregiver intentionally makes someone ill to gain attention or sympathy. Ryder had read case studies during his security training. Never had he imagined his own wife would be capable of such monstrosity. Detective Lorena Walsh arrived within 30 minutes. Composed and meticulous, she reviewed the footage while Ryder provided background information. We'll need to take Mrs. Mercer into custody for questioning, Detective Walsh explained. Given the evidence, we'll be pursuing charges of child endangerment and assault. She'll be returning tomorrow morning, Ryder said, his voice devoid of emotion. I'd prefer Lucas not witness her arrest. We can intercept her in the parking garage, Detective Walsh agreed. After she left, Ryder returned to Lucas's bedside, a maelstrom of emotions barely contained beneath his stoic exterior. Betrayal cut deep, but this was something far more sinister. Natalie hadn't just betrayed their marriage. She had systematically poisoned their son. His phone buzzed with a message from Miguel. Preliminary report ready. Encrypted to your secure server. In the hospital bathroom, Ryder reviewed the findings on his tablet. Harrison Vaughn had a history that extended beyond personal training. He'd been implicated in 2 prior cases involving wealthy clients' bitter divorces, always as the romantic leverage that preceded suspiciously favorable settlements for the wives involved. More disturbingly, financial traces showed Natalie had consulted a high-profile divorce attorney 3 months ago. She'd also made significant transfers to offshore accounts, money siphoned from their joint accounts in small increments over the past year. This wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated exit strategy. Ryder returned to Lucas's bedside, a plan already forming in his mind. Natalie and Harrison had orchestrated a scheme to position her for a lucrative divorce, with Lucas as a pawn in their game. What they didn't realize was that they had awakened something far more dangerous than a betrayed husband. They had provoked a predator who now had them in his sights. Chapter 3. Breaking Point. The morning brought controlled chaos as Detective Walsh and her team intercepted Natalie in the hospital parking garage. News of the arrest spread through the hospital staff with hushed urgency. Dr. Patel confirmed their suspicions. The substance in Lucas's water cup contained ipecac and traces of sedatives, a combination designed to induce illness while keeping Lucas compliant. By afternoon, Lucas's condition had already begun to improve. The persistent fever broke, and for the first time in weeks, his eyes were clear and alert. "Where's Mom?" he asked as Ryder helped him with lunch. "Mom is going to be away for a while," Ryder said carefully. "She's not feeling well." Lucas pushed his food around his plate. "Is it because of the medicine?" Ryder froze. "What medicine, buddy?" "The special medicine. Mom says I'm sick and needed to get better, but it always makes my tummy hurt." Lucas's voice dropped to a whisper. "She said if I told you, I'd have to go away forever." The plastic cup in Ryder's hand cracked under his grip. He forced himself to breathe, to speak calmly. "You never have to take that medicine again, Lucas. And you're never going away. I promise." After Lucas fell asleep, Ryder met with Detective Walsh and Assistant District Attorney Preston Davis in the hospital conference room. "We've searched your home and found substantial evidence," Detective Walsh explained. "Ipecac, laxatives, crushed sedatives, all hidden in a locked case in your wife's closet. Harrison Vaughn has also been taken in for questioning," Davis added. "Their text messages suggest he was aware of her activities and may have been helping acquire some of the substances. Preliminary charges will include aggravated child abuse, attempted poisoning, and conspiracy," Walsh continued. "Given the premeditation and duration, we're looking at significant prison time." Ryder absorbed this information with unnerving stillness. "And Lucas? Child Protective Services has been notified, but given your clear non-involvement and protective actions, there's no reason you won't retain full custody," Davis assured him. "Though Lucas will need specialized counseling." "Consider it arranged," Ryder said. "When can I take him home?" "Dr. Patel believes he'll be ready for discharge tomorrow, assuming his improvements continue," Walsh replied. "We'll need occasional follow-up interviews with both of you as the case progresses." After they left, Ryder received another encrypted message from Miguel. "Secondary target surveillance established. Irregularities in financial background suggest potential leverage points. In-person briefing recommended." Ryder's reply was immediate. "Tomorrow, 1400, office." That night, as Lucas slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, Ryder allowed himself a moment of vulnerability. He brushed his son's hair back from his forehead, rage and love warring within him. The woman he had married, the mother of his child, had systematically poisoned their son for months, perhaps longer. The depth of such betrayal was unfathomable. His phone buzzed with a notification. Natalie's attorney was requesting a meeting. "Mr. Mercer, despite these troubling allegations, my client is still your wife and Lucas's mother. She's entitled to certain considerations. Perhaps we can discuss this matter like civilized people before irrevocable decisions are made." Ryder stared at the message, a cold smile forming on his lips. They still thought this was about divorce, about money, about legal maneuvering. They had no idea what they'd unleashed. He composed a single reply. "Your client poisoned my son repeatedly over months, threatened him into silence, and conspired with her lover to continue this abuse while planning to steal my assets. There will be no considerations. There will be no civilized discussion. There will only be consequences." He sent the message and blocked the number. The next morning, as he helped Lucas pack his few belongings for discharge, Nurse Amara stopped by with a tablet. "Lucas's final labs are all clear," she said, relief evident in her voice. Then, more quietly, "The police were here again this morning. They found evidence that Natalie may have been gradually poisoning you as well. Low-level toxins in your coffee, your food." Ryder absorbed this revelation without visible reaction, though inside, another piece clicked into place. The unexplained headaches, the occasional nausea, symptoms he'd attributed to stress. "Thank you for telling me," he said simply. "Will you be okay?" Amara asked, genuine concern in her eyes. Ryder looked at Lucas, now animated and chatting with an orderly about superhero powers. "We will be," he said with quiet certainty. but others won't. As they left the hospital, Lucas holding tight to his father's hand, Ryder's phone buzzed with a news alert. Harrison Vaughn had been released on bail, his attorney vehemently denying any knowledge of or involvement in Natalie's actions. Ryder closed the notification, his expression unreadable. Let them think this would play out in courtrooms and legal briefs. Let them believe that restraining orders and bail conditions would protect them. He had spent 8 years in naval intelligence eliminating threats. Now, he would use those same skills to protect his son in a different way, by ensuring that those who had harmed him would never have the opportunity to do so again. The game they thought they were playing had just changed fundamentally, and they didn't even know it yet. Chapter 4: Shadows Revealed. 1 month after Lucas's discharge from the hospital, their lives had achieved a fragile new normal. Lucas attended therapy 3 times weekly, gradually processing his mother's betrayal with the help of Dr. Eliza Winters, a specialist in childhood trauma. The preliminary hearing for Natalie's case had been scheduled, with Harrison Vaughn named as a co-conspirator despite his vehement denial of involvement. Ryder had transformed the home office of their Lake Oswego mansion into what Miguel Torres privately called the war room. Intelligence reports, surveillance photos, and financial records covered the walls behind locked doors. Lucas never entered this space. As far as he was concerned, it remained Dad's boring work office. That afternoon, Ryder sat across from Miguel in the war room, reviewing the latest findings. Harrison Vaughn is more interesting than we initially thought, Miguel said, sliding a dossier across the desk. He's operated under 3 different names in the past decade. Each time, he gets close to wealthy women in troubled marriages, facilitates favorable divorce settlements, takes his cut, and disappears. And Natalie? She reached out to him first, not as a personal trainer, but through a particular online forum. Miguel tapped the relevant printout. A forum dedicated to discussing untraceable poisons and their effects. Ryder's expression didn't change, but something darkened in his eyes. How long ago? 14 months. Shortly after Lucas's 6th birthday. The timing aligned with Ryder's major business expansion, a period when he'd been traveling extensively, securing new contracts. He'd brought Lucas along whenever possible, turning business trips into adventures for his son. The forum messages suggest she was already planning to induce illness in both you and Lucas, Miguel continued. Vaughn appears to have specialized knowledge in this area. His previous identity was linked to a pharmaceutical research position in Argentina. And the offshore accounts. We've traced 3. Combined balance of approximately $3.7 million. Most of it transferred from your joint accounts over the past year. Ryder steepled his fingers. What about the girlfriend? Miguel hesitated before pulling out another file. Vaughn's current partner is Stephanie Russo, 28, former model, works at his fitness studio. Based on surveillance, she's fully aware of his relationship with Natalie. In fact, he slid across a photograph showing Stephanie, Harrison, and Natalie laughing together at an outdoor cafe. They're all in on it, Ryder concluded. A team operation. Gets worse, Miguel said grimly. Stephanie has been seen twice now picking up Lucas's regular babysitter, Brooke, from your neighborhood. They spend approximately 2 hours together before Stephanie drops her back off. They recruited my son's babysitter for information, Ryder mused, the pieces assembling in his analytical mind, monitoring his routines, his medications, possibly even planting devices in our home. We swept the house again yesterday, while you and Lucas were at therapy. Found 3 new listening devices in the kitchen, Lucas's bedroom, and your bathroom. Ryder absorbed this silently. What about their endgame? Natalie's facing serious charges. What were they planning? Miguel pulled out the final report. Based on fragmentary evidence from encrypted communications we've intercepted, they anticipated you'd discover the poisoning eventually. Their contingency plan involved Natalie claiming diminished capacity due to postpartum depression that never resolved. Vaughn would testify that he was trying to help her seek treatment. With her medical defense and your presumed desire to protect Lucas from a public trial, they anticipated you'd agree to a private settlement, where I'd give her half my assets to make it all go away, Ryder concluded. Approximately 60%, according to their calculations, plus ongoing support. Ryder stood, moving to the window that overlooked the manicured grounds where Lucas was playing with his new therapy dog, a gentle golden retriever named Sentinel. They miscalculated, he said softly. They assumed I'd behave like a typical wronged husband, angry but ultimately practical, willing to pay to protect my reputation and my son. That was their mistake, Miguel agreed. They didn't research your background thoroughly enough. Ryder turned, his decision made. I want complete surveillance on all 3 primary targets, plus the babysitter. Every communication, every movement. I want their routines, vulnerabilities, pressure points. Already in progress, Miguel confirmed. And the digital intrusion? Proceed as discussed. Full spectrum penetration of their devices, accounts, identities. I want to own their digital lives completely. Miguel nodded, gathering the files. What about the DA's office? They're pushing for a plea deal, saying Lucas's testimony would be too traumatic. Stall them, Ryder instructed. Tell them I'm considering all options, but require more time given the emotional impact on my son. After Miguel left, Ryder joined Lucas outside, watching his son throw a ball for Sentinel. Seeing the gradual return of joy to his face, Ryder felt the familiar cold clarity that had served him so well in naval intelligence. Natalie, Harrison, and their accomplices hadn't just betrayed him. They had tortured an innocent child for financial gain. They had inflicted lasting trauma on Lucas, trauma that would require years of healing. The legal system would not deliver appropriate justice. But Ryder would. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know what you're planning. We should talk. Hey, curious, Ryder replied. Who is this? The response came quickly. Amara Phillips, the nurse who showed you the monitor footage. I have information you need. Ryder studied the message, suspicion warring with intuition. After running the number through a verification system, he arranged to meet her the following day at a quiet cafe far from the hospital. Justice was coming, and it would arrive from unexpected directions. Chapter 5. The Hunter's Past. The cafe where Ryder met Amara was deliberately nondescript, a place where neither of them was likely to be recognized. She arrived precisely on time, her hospital scrubs replaced by jeans and a simple blouse, her expression grave. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding into the booth across from him. Your message was intriguing, Ryder replied, studying her carefully. How did you get my personal number? I used to work for Devon Medical Research, Amara said, watching for his reaction. Before it was acquired by Mercer Security's healthcare division. Understanding dawned in Ryder's eyes. Devon had been a specialized facility focused on counter-bioterrorism, one of his company's more classified acquisitions. You weren't just a nurse at Westlake. I'm part of their covert patient safety team, she confirmed. We monitor high-risk cases involving potential intentional harm. Your son's case triggered our protocols. And you're telling me this why? Amara leaned forward. Because Harrison Vaughn worked at Devon too, under the name Henry Vickers. He specialized in synthesizing compounds that mimic natural illnesses, untraceable in standard toxicology screens. Ryder's expression remained neutral, but his mind was racing. That's why Lucas's early tests showed nothing conclusive. Exactly. It was only when we applied Devon-level screening protocols that we detected the compounds. She paused. Vaughn was dismissed from Devon 4 years ago when his research veered into unethical applications. But he took his knowledge with him. And you're not sharing this with the police because... I already have, but there's more. Amara pulled out a small drive. Vaughn's been linked to 3 other cases involving poisoned children. In each instance, the mother was the perpetrator, charges were eventually reduced or dismissed, and substantial financial settlements followed. The pattern matches your situation perfectly. They've done this before, Ryder said softly, cold rage crystallizing within him. Successfully each time. And there's something else. Your wife consulted with the same attorney who represented the other mothers, Lawrence Winfield, meaning Winfield is part of their operation. Amara nodded. I believe so. Devon's security team has been watching Vaughn since his dismissal, concerned about his knowledge being weaponized. but we've never had enough evidence for criminal prosecution. Until now. Even now, it's complicated. These compounds are designed to metabolize quickly. The evidence from Lucas's case is stronger than previous instances, but Vaughn's lawyers will argue that Natalie acted alone and that any similarities to other cases are coincidental. Ryder pocketed the drive. Why are you really here, Amara? This goes beyond professional concern. Her composure faltered slightly. My nephew was their victim 3 years ago. Case number 2. He survived, but the psychological damage. She straightened, composure returning. Let's just say I understand if you find the legal system's approach to justice insufficient in this case. The implication was clear. She wasn't just providing information, she was providing tacit approval for whatever measures Ryder might take. I appreciate your insight, he said carefully. Rest assured, Lucas's well-being is my sole priority. Of course, she replied, equally measured. I should mention that Vaughn maintains a property in rural Washington under yet another alias. Very private, very isolated. She slid a paper with coordinates across the table. Just a point of interest. As she stood to leave, she added, Naval intelligence teaches its operatives to leave no trace, I've heard. An admirable skill in many contexts. After she departed, Ryder remained at the table, contemplating this new information. His phone buzzed with an update from Miguel. Natalie's preliminary hearing had been moved up, scheduled now, for just 2 weeks away. Her attorney was pushing for mental health evaluations, building the groundwork for a diminished capacity defense. Meanwhile, Harrison and Stephanie had been spotted meeting with the babysitter again, this time at Harrison's fitness studio after hours. Surveillance had captured partial audio, suggesting they were preparing her for potential testimony about Ryder's parenting, fabricating evidence of neglect to counter Natalie's abuse charges. The final piece fell into place. This wasn't just about money anymore. They were constructing a narrative where Natalie was the mentally fragile victim and Ryder was the true villain. A workaholic father who neglected his family and drove his wife to breakdown. With Winfield's legal expertise and Vaughn's medical knowledge, they might actually succeed. Ryder drove to his company headquarters, taking a private elevator to the secure floor that housed his most classified operations. Only 3 employees had clearance for this level, all veterans of intelligence agencies with impeccable loyalty. Sir, acknowledged Ian Keller, his head of cyber operations. We've completed the digital infiltration as requested. Full access established to all target devices and accounts. Show me, Ryder instructed. On the main screen, Diane displayed a comprehensive surveillance dashboard. Text messages, emails, GPS locations, audio and video feed from compromised devices, a complete digital invasion of the conspirators' lives. We've also located their operational communications, Diane continued, bringing up an encrypted messaging platform. They're using a supposedly secure service, but we've established backdoor access. Ryder reviewed the most recent exchanges, his suspicions confirmed. The group's communications detailed contingency plans, coach testimony, and explicit discussions of how to manipulate Lucas's potential statements if he were called to testify. One message from Harrison to Natalie particularly caught his attention. If pressure builds, remember our insurance policy. Ours naval work included actions that would destroy him if exposed. The files are where we discussed. Last resort only. Insurance policy? Ryder questioned. We're still working on that reference, Diane admitted. But we've located a secured cloud storage account referenced elsewhere in their communications. Decryption is in progress. Ryder nodded, pieces falling into place. During his naval intelligence years, he'd led several classified operations, missions that existed in the gray areas of international law. While all had been sanctioned by proper authorities, the public presentation of selected details could be devastating both personally and professionally. Time to activate Phase 2, he decided, turning to the third person in the room, Alexander Reed, former psychological operations specialist. The profiles are ready, Alexander confirmed. Based on comprehensive psychological assessments, we've identified optimal pressure points for each target. On a separate screen, he displayed detailed psychological profiles of Natalie, Harrison, Stephanie, Brooke the babysitter, and Lawrence Winfield. Natalie's primary vulnerabilities are her narcissism and paranoia. Harrison fears exposure and physical pain. Stephanie values her public image above all else. Brooke is financially desperate and deeply insecure. Winfield has a pathological fear of professional disgrace. Begin individualized pressure campaigns, Ryder instructed. Subtle at first, then escalating. I want them destabilized, uncertain, and turning against each other before the hearing. As he left the facility, Ryder thought of Lucas at home with his new nanny, a former military child psychologist thoroughly vetted by Miguel's team. His son was safe, finally, but the people who had hurt him continued to move freely in the world, plotting their next moves, confident in their ability to manipulate the system. That confidence was about to be systematically destroyed. Chapter 6, Blood Ties. 10 days before Natalie's preliminary hearing, the first cracks in the conspirators' alliance began to show. Ryder monitored the situation from his war room, watching as his carefully orchestrated pressure campaign yielded results. Harrison Vaughn received an anonymous package containing medical documents from his time at Devon Research, documents that detailed his unauthorized experiments and subsequent dismissal. The same day, his fitness studio clients began receiving emails detailing his history of professional misconduct, complete with fabricated but convincing testimonials from former victims. Stephanie discovered her modeling portfolio website had been replaced with digitally altered images depicting her in compromising positions, alongside manufactured evidence of prescription drug abuse. The images hadn't been publicly released yet, but the implicit threat was clear. Lawrence Winfield found his law firm's client database apparently breached, with selective files regarding his involvement in the previous poisoning cases compiled and left prominently on his private office computer. The babysitter, Brooke, received notice that her student loans had been mysteriously accelerated to immediate repayment status, along with evidence that her recent communications with Harrison and Stephanie had been recorded. And Natalie, held in county jail awaiting her hearing, discovered that her commissary account had been emptied, her phone privileges revoked due to system errors, and her carefully accumulated privileges within the jail hierarchy suddenly gone. Small pressures individually. Combined, they created an atmosphere of paranoia and suspicion that Ryder could monitor in real time through their digital communications. Someone knows everything. We need to meet. Harrison. Not possible until hearing. Who have you told about our arrangement? Natalie. No one. This has to be from your end. Harrison. My entire career is at stake. If this exposure is traced to your incompetence. Winfield. Watching their increasing panic, Ryder allowed himself a small, cold smile. Phase 2 was proceeding exactly as designed. The door to the war room opened, and Miguel entered with a tablet. We've decrypted the insurance policy files, he reported. They managed to obtain classified reports from 2 of your naval intelligence operations, the Ankara extraction and the Caracas infiltration. Ryder examined the files. Selectively edited, they painted his actions as rogue operations rather than sanctioned missions. A skilled attorney like Winfield could use them to create reasonable doubt about Ryder's character, potentially undermining the case against Natalie. How did they obtain these? Ryder asked, though he already suspected the answer. We traced the access to Commander Philip Whalen, Miguel confirmed. Your former superior officer. Another betrayal from a man Ryder had once respected. The revelation should have hurt, but Ryder felt only a detached recognition of another target identified. Add Whalen to the surveillance list, Ryder instructed. Same protocols. Miguel hesitated. There's something else you should see. He pulled up a genetic test report from Lucas's hospital records, one Ryder hadn't seen before. Standard protocol in suspected abuse cases includes DNA verification of family relationships, Miguel explained gently. Dr. Patel ordered this test, but the results were only recently finalized. Ryder stared at the screen, the implications clear. According to the genetic markers, Lucas was not his biological son. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt. In all his calculations, all his intelligence gathering, this possibility had never occurred to him. Lucas, the center of his world, the child he had raised and loved for 7 years, carried another man's DNA? The timing suggests conception would have been during your deployment to the UE, Miguel said quietly. When Natalie claimed she visited you on leave. She never made that trip, Ryder said, his voice distant. She claimed it was canceled at the last minute due to illness. Based on genetic markers, we believe Harrison Vaughn is the biological father, Miguel continued. This suggests their relationship predates your awareness by several years. The revelation should have diminished Ryder's resolve, should have made him question his vendetta. Instead, it crystallized his determination to a diamond-hard clarity. Lucas is my son, he said finally, with absolute conviction. Biology is irrelevant. I've been his father in every way that matters since the day he was born. Miguel nodded, relief visible in his eyes. I hoped you'd see it that way. But this does change the operational parameters, Ryder continued, his tactical mind already adapting. Their conspiracy is more extensive and long-term than we realized. And it means Harrison's investment in this situation is deeper than financial gain. You think he wants custody of Lucas? I think he wants to destroy me completely, Ryder corrected. Financial ruin, professional disgrace. And taking my son would accomplish that. The question is whether Natalie has always been his partner in this, or if she was initially his victim who became an accomplice. New intelligence suggested the latter. Surveillance had captured a conversation between Harrison and Stephanie discussing how they had turned Natalie years ago, manipulating her insecurities and gradually drawing her into their scheme. Ryder adjusted his plans accordingly. Natalie remained culpable for her actions, the poisoning, the threats, the abuse, but her role in a larger conspiracy might be as much pawn as queen. That evening, as Lucas showed him a drawing from therapy, a family portrait featuring Ryder, Lucas, and Sentinel the therapy dog, Ryder felt a surge of protective fury unlike anything he'd experienced before. Is this our family now, Dad? Lucas asked, pointing to the drawing. Yes, buddy. This is our family. I don't miss Mom, Lucas confessed in a small voice. Is that bad? Ryder pulled his son close. You feel what you feel, Lucas. There's no wrong way to feel. After Lucas was asleep, Ryder received an encrypted message from Amara. Vaughn accessed hospital records remotely today. Search for Lucas's genetic testing. He knows the results. Be vigilant. The final piece locked into place. If Harrison knew he was Lucas's biological father, he would leverage that fact in court, potentially complicating Ryder's custody rights despite Natalie's abuse. That night, Ryder called Alexander Reed. Accelerate the timetable, he instructed. I want Phase 3 operational immediately. Sir, Phase 3 was scheduled for after the hearing, Alexander cautioned. Moving now increases certain risks. Circumstances have changed, Ryder replied. Our opponents are preparing to escalate. We need to preempt them. After ending the call, Ryder sat in the darkness of his office, contemplating the chessboard he had constructed. Every move had been calculated, every contingency planned for, except this one fundamental truth about his son's paternity. But it changed nothing about his resolve. Those who had hurt Lucas would still face justice. His justice, not the courts. Their conspiracy would be dismantled, their lives destroyed as systematically as they had planned to destroy his. The fact that Harrison was Lucas's biological father only meant his punishment would be that much more exquisite. Ryder opened his laptop and began typing instructions for Phase 3, the endgame. Chapter 7, Calculated Pain. 5 days before Natalie's preliminary hearing, Harrison Vaughn disappeared. He left his fitness studio at 9:17 p.m. after a late consultation, walked to his Tesla in the underground parking garage, and vanished. Security cameras showed him entering the garage but never leaving. His car remained in its parking space, keys still in the ignition. The police investigation revealed nothing. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Nothing on the garage cameras except an 18-second loop of empty footage. A professional's touch that Detective Walsh noted with concern when she called Ryder the next morning. Mr. Mercer, I'm obligated to inform you that Harrison Vaughn has gone missing, she said carefully. Given his connection to your wife's case, I need to ask, do you have any information about his whereabouts? None whatsoever, Ryder replied truthfully. Though I can't say I'm devastated by the news. I understand your feelings, but I should warn you. You'll be a person of interest in this investigation. Of course, Ryder agreed. I'm happy to cooperate fully. My company's security team can provide comprehensive documentation of my whereabouts for the past week. After ending the call, Ryder checked the encrypted feed from a warehouse his company owned under a shell corporation in industrial Northwest Portland. In a soundproofed room, Harrison Vaughn sat handcuffed to a metal chair, monitored by Alexander Reed and two of Ryder's most trusted security specialists. Phase 3 was underway. That evening, after ensuring Lucas was settled with his nanny, Ryder drove to the warehouse. Harrison looked up as Ryder entered, fear warring with defiance in his eyes. I wondered when you'd show, Harrison said, attempting bravado. You realize kidnapping carries a steeper sentence than anything Natalie's charged with. Ryder placed a tablet on the table between them, displaying the evidence of Harrison's previous poisoning conspiracies. 3 children before Lucas, Ryder said conversationally. All poisoned under your guidance. All suffering lasting psychological damage. You can't prove any of that. I already have. Ryder pulled up documentation of financial transfers, text messages, medical records. The question isn't whether you'll be convicted, Harrison. It's whether they'll find enough of your body to bury. Fear flickered across Harrison's face, quickly suppressed. Killing me won't solve anything. I'm Lucas's biological father. DNA tests confirm it. Biology doesn't make you a father, Ryder replied, his voice deadly quiet. I've been there for every nightmare, every triumph, every skinned knee and bedtime story. You're nothing but a DNA donor who later conspired to poison my son. Our son, Harrison corrected, a fatal miscalculation. Ryder smiled, a predator smile that drained the blood from Harrison's face. Let me be clear, Ryder said softly. I'm not here to kill you. Death would be too merciful. He nodded to Alexander, who opened a case containing medical equipment. You poisoned my son slowly, systematically, over months, Ryder continued. Now you'll experience those same symptoms, accelerated but identical. Every pain Lucas felt, you'll feel. Every terror he experienced, you'll know. You won't get away with this, Harrison whispered. I already have. Ryder showed him live feeds of the police investigation, the media coverage of his disappearance. While you're here experiencing Lucas's suffering, your life is being systematically dismantled. Your assets frozen. Your reputation destroyed. Your past crimes exposed. Over the next 72 hours, Harrison received carefully calibrated doses of the same compounds he had provided to Natalie for Lucas. He experienced the nausea, the fever, the pain, all under careful medical supervision that ensured he suffered without risk of death. Meanwhile, the other conspirators began to unravel. Stephanie, panicked by Harrison's disappearance and the escalating attacks on her reputation, attempted to flee to Mexico, but was detained at the airport when anonymous tips led TSA agents to discover falsified travel documents in her luggage. Lawrence Winfield withdrew as Natalie's attorney after receiving evidence packages linking him to the previous poisoning cases, his professional self-preservation overriding any loyalty to the conspiracy. Commander Whalen, confronted with evidence of his unauthorized sharing of classified materials, took early retirement and disappeared to a remote property in Montana, effectively removing himself as a potential witness. The babysitter, Brooke, crumbled under the financial pressure and approached Detective Walsh, offering a complete confession in exchange for immunity, detailing how she had been recruited to spy on Ryder and Lucas and to plant listening devices in their home. Natalie, isolated in jail and increasingly desperate as her support system collapsed, began sending frantic messages to anyone who would listen, her carefully constructed facade of mental instability giving way to revealing rage and accusations. On the eve of what would have been her preliminary hearing, Ryder visited her in jail. She looked diminished, her designer clothes replaced by an orange jumpsuit, her carefully maintained appearance showing the strain of confinement. "You," she spat when he entered the visitation room. "What have you done to Harrison?" "Nothing compared to what you did to Lucas," Ryder replied calmly, taking the seat across from her. It was Harrison's idea, she said quickly. He convinced me Lucas needed medical attention. I never meant to hurt him. You threatened our son into silence while poisoning him for months, Ryder reminded her, his voice devoid of emotion. You told him he'd be taken away, forever, if he told me about the special medicine you forced him to take. Natalie's composure cracked. You weren't supposed to find out. The hospital monitoring was unexpected. We just needed Lucas sick enough to sell the neglectful father narrative for the divorce. And the attempt to poison me? Her eyes widened in genuine surprise. What? The toxins in my food and coffee, Ryder clarified. Was that also Harrison's idea, or your own initiative? I didn't, she stopped, understanding dawning. He said it was just to make you distracted, more prone to mistakes during the divorce. Low doses, nothing permanent. The same lie he told the other mothers, I imagine, Ryder observed, before they all took the fall while he walked away with his share of the proceeds. Natalie's face drained of color. What do you mean, other mothers? Ryder showed her the evidence of Harrison's previous schemes, watching as the last of her defiance collapsed in a horrified comprehension. You were never special, Natalie. You were just the latest mark in his ongoing operation. He's Lucas's biological father from your affair 7 years ago, which means this has been a long-term plan. Get you to poison your own child and take the fall while he collects his percentage of my assets. No, she whispered. He loves me. We were going to be together after I was financially ruined and you had custody of Lucas. Ryder finished. Tell me, in this fantasy future, was Lucas going to continue being mysteriously ill to maintain your narrative, or was he miraculously going to recover once Harrison moved in? Tears streamed down Natalie's face as the full scope of her manipulation became clear. The DA is offering a plea deal, Ryder continued dispassionately. 20 years with possibility of parole after 12. Given the evidence Brooke has provided and the additional victims we've identified, I'd take it if I were you. The alternative is spending the rest of your life in prison. What about Harrison? She asked, desperation in her voice. Harrison is experiencing everything Lucas experienced, Ryder said softly. Every symptom, every fear, every moment of confusion and pain. Understanding dawned in Natalie's eyes. You have him. Had, Ryder corrected. By now, he's been delivered to a location outside U.S. jurisdiction, where he'll face consequences for his previous victims. You'll never see him again. This was true, in its way. After 72 hours of experiencing Lucas's suffering, Harrison had been sedated and transported to a black site medical facility owned by one of Ryder's international subsidiaries, a place where he would continue to receive just enough care to keep him alive while experiencing the lasting effects of the poisons he had designed. You've destroyed everything, Natalie whispered. No, Ryder corrected her. You did that the first time you made our son swallow poison for your financial gain. He stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Lucas asked me to give you a message. Hope flickered briefly in Natalie's eyes. He said to tell you that he's not afraid anymore. That Sentinel keeps the bad dreams away. Ryder's expression remained impassive. That's his therapy dog, the one who sleeps at the foot of his bed now, keeping him safe from the monster who poisoned him. Natalie broke then, collapsing into sobs as the full weight of what she had done and what she had lost finally registered. Ryder walked out without looking back, leaving behind the woman he had once loved and the life they had shared. The divorce papers would be filed tomorrow, the custody arrangements already settled given Natalie's criminal charges. Lucas was safe. The conspiracy was dismantled. Justice, real justice, not the pale approximation offered by courts, had been served. And Ryder Mercer was just getting started. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. 3 months after Natalie accepted the DA's plea deal, Ryder sat in his office reviewing the quarterly reports from Mercer Security Solutions. The company had not only survived the scandal surrounding his family, but had thrived, with Ryder's transparent handling of the situation and unwavering focus on Lucas's recovery, earning unexpected public sympathy. Lucas himself was flourishing. His therapy was progressing well, his health fully restored, and his nightmares increasingly rare. He had started at a new school where nobody knew his history, making friends, and gradually reclaiming the childhood that had been interrupted by Natalie's betrayal. A knock at the door preceded Miguel's entrance, tablet in hand. "Final update on the secondary targets," he reported. Stephanie took the plea deal, 5 years for conspiracy and obstruction. She's been cooperating, providing details about previous operations in exchange for protection. And Winfield, disbarred last week. The evidence we provided to the Bar Association was compelling. He's facing criminal charges in 2 states for his role in the previous cases. Commander Whalen? Miguel's expression darkened slightly. Still in Montana. Remote property. Minimal contact with outside world. Ryder nodded thoughtfully. And our primary asset? Secure at the Ecuador facility. Medical reports indicate stable condition, though the psychological evaluation suggests significant deterioration. Harrison's disappearance remained officially unsolved, though Detective Walsh continued to cast suspicious glances at Ryder during their increasingly infrequent meetings. Without evidence, however, her suspicions remained just that. "What about Natalie?" Ryder asked, though he already knew the answer. Settled into the routine at Lakewood Correctional. No visitors except her mother twice monthly. Psychiatric reports indicate depression and anxiety, but no suicidal ideation. Ryder absorbed this information with clinical detachment. Natalie's suffering held no particular satisfaction for him. She was simply a threat that had been neutralized, a chapter closed. "And our special project?" he inquired. Miguel smiled slightly. "Dr. Winters reports that Lucas is responding exceptionally well to the cognitive behavioral techniques. His resilience scores have improved dramatically. This was the true victory, not the destruction of those who had harmed his son, but Lucas's recovery and renewed happiness. There is one outstanding matter," Miguel added, his expression growing serious. "Commander Whalen. He still possesses copies of her naval intelligence files." Ryder considered this. Whalen represented the last loose end in the conspiracy, a potential threat who could someday resurface with damaging information. "It's time we addressed that vulnerability," Ryder decided. "Arrange the usual protocols." Miguel nodded, understanding the instructions perfectly. That weekend, Ryder took Lucas camping in the Cascade Mountains, a father-son adventure free from digital devices and painful memories. Watching Lucas roast marshmallows by the campfire, Sentinel dutifully at his side, Ryder felt a rare moment of genuine peace. "Dad," Lucas asked, his face golden in the firelight, "are bad people always punished?" Ryder considered the question carefully. "Not by the world, buddy. Sometimes the world misses things. But I believe that one way or another, people face consequences for the harm they cause." Lucas nodded, satisfied with this answer. "Like Mom and Harrison?" "Yes," Ryder said simply. "Like them. Will I ever have to see them again?" "No," Ryder promised. "Never." Later that night, as Lucas slept soundly in their tent, Ryder received a single encrypted message from Alexander. "Montana situation resolved. Asset permanently retired. No traces." Commander Whalen's hunting accident would make brief local news the following week, then be forgotten. A tragedy, but not a mystery. The classified files in his possession would be discovered to have been destroyed in a house fire weeks earlier, leaving no evidence of their contents. The circle of retribution was nearly complete. 3 days later, Ryder visited a private medical facility in Quito, Ecuador, accessible only via his company's private jet. The facility director, Dr. Marquez, greeted him personally. "Mr. Mercer, always an honor. The patient has been prepared as requested." Harrison Vaughn, now known only as Patient 47, sat in a wheelchair in a sterile white room, his once athletic frame wasted, his eyes vacant. The carefully calibrated compounds he had created for torturing children had taken their toll on his own body and mind, administered in controlled doses that ensured suffering without release. He experiences periods of lucidity, Dr. Marquez explained clinically, usually accompanied by extreme distress as he remembers his circumstances. Ryder approached Harrison, whose eyes briefly focused, recognition and terror flashing across his gaunt face. "Please," Harrison whispered, his voice cracked from disuse. "Kill me. No, Ryder replied simply. You'll live a long life here, Harrison, experiencing every symptom, every pain you designed for innocent children. The medical team has orders to keep you alive and cognitively aware enough to understand why this is happening. Mercy, Harrison pleaded. Did you show mercy to Lucas? Ryder asked. To the other children? Harrison's eyes filled with tears. He's my son. No, Ryder corrected him. He's mine, and you'll never see him again. As Harrison began to sob, Ryder turned to Dr. Marquez. Continue the established protocol. I want monthly reports on his condition. Of course, Mr. Mercer. Outside the facility, Ryder breathed in the mountain air, letting go of the cold rage that had driven him for months. Justice had been served. Not the imperfect justice of courts and prisons, but the absolute justice of a father protecting his child. His phone buzzed with a message from Lucas's new nanny, a photo of Lucas and Sentinel playing in the backyard, both looking happy and carefree. For the first time since discovering the hospital monitor footage, Ryder smiled genuinely. The past couldn't be changed, but the future remained unwritten, and he would ensure Lucas's future contained only happiness and security, protected by a father who would stop at nothing to keep him safe. Chapter 9. No Mercy. 2 years passed, bringing healing and new beginnings. Lucas, now 9, had blossomed into a confident, happy child whose trauma showed itself only occasionally in nightmares or moments of unexpected anxiety. Regular therapy with Dr. Winters continued, now reduced to monthly check-ins, and Sentinel remained his constant companion. Mercer Security Solutions had expanded internationally, with Ryder strategically delegating operational responsibilities to allow more time with Lucas. Their bond had grown stronger through the crucible of shared trauma and recovery, forging a relationship built on absolute trust and devotion. On a crisp autumn morning, Ryder sat in his home office reviewing surveillance reports from the Ecuador facility, his quarterly ritual of confirming that Harrison remained securely contained. Physically stabilized, but mentally diminished, patient 47 had become a ghost, his existence known only to Ryder and his innermost circle. A knock at the door interrupted his review. Miguel entered, accompanied by Amara Phillips, whose occasional advisory role had evolved into regular consultation on Lucas's continued recovery. We have a situation, Miguel said without preamble. Natalie's mother died last week. I'm aware, Ryder replied. The mother's passing had been noted in his regular surveillance of anything connected to Natalie, though he deemed it irrelevant. There's more, Amara continued. Natalie has requested compassionate leave to attend the funeral tomorrow. Given her model prisoner status and the circumstances, it's been granted, under escort, of course. Ryder's expression remained neutral, but his mind immediately calculated potential threat vectors. Length of release? 6 hours, Miguel supplied. 2 armed corrections officers will accompany her at all times. That's not the concerning part, Amara added. Lawrence Winfield has been seen visiting her mother's attorney this week. We believe her mother's will contain provisions for Lucas, possibly a trust fund or inheritance, which would require Lucas's presence at the reading of the will, Ryder concluded, understanding the potential complication, creating an opportunity for Natalie to see him. Exactly, Miguel confirmed. The attorney has already contacted our legal department requesting Lucas's attendance next week. Ryder considered this development. In the 2 years since Natalie's conviction, she had made no attempts to contact Lucas. Whether from respect for his recovery or recognition of the futility, Ryder couldn't say. This indirect approach through inheritance law was clever, potentially forcing a supervised meeting that courts might view as in Lucas's financial interest. What does Lucas want? Ryder asked, looking to Amara. He doesn't know yet, she replied. But in our last session, he mentioned that he sometimes wonders what happened to his mother. Not from missing her, she clarified quickly, but from curiosity about consequences. Ryder nodded thoughtfully. Arrange a consultation with Dr. Winters today. If she believes Lucas is emotionally prepared for this knowledge, I'll discuss it with him tonight. After they left, Ryder stood at his office window, watching Lucas and Sentinel playing in the yard below. The boy had Ryder's mannerisms now. Confident movements, analytical gaze, strategic approach to even simple games. Biology had proven irrelevant. Lucas was his son in every way that mattered. That evening, following Dr. Winter's cautious approval, Ryder sat with Lucas in their favorite spot, a window seat overlooking the lake, where their most important conversations had always taken place. "I need to tell you something about Mom," Ryder began carefully, watching his son's reaction. Lucas's expression grew serious but not fearful. "Is she trying to come back?" "No, buddy. She's still in prison. But her mother, your grandmother, has died." Lucas absorbed this with surprising composure. "I don't really remember her." "Grandma, I mean, she didn't visit often," Ryder acknowledged. "But it seems she left something for you in her will. Next week, there's going to be a meeting about it, and they've asked if you want to be there." "Will Mom be there too?" Lucas asked perceptively. "No," Ryder assured him. "She'll be at the funeral tomorrow, but she'll be back in prison before the will reading. You wouldn't have to see her." Lucas was quiet for a moment, petting Sentinel thoughtfully. "Do you think I should go?" Ryder chose his words carefully. "That's entirely your decision, Lucas. If you're curious about what your grandmother left you, we can go together. If you're not comfortable, our lawyers can handle everything." "Would you be disappointed if I wanted to go?" Lucas asked, his insightfulness sometimes startling Ryder. "Never," Ryder assured him. "I want you to make choices that feel right to you." Lucas nodded, decision made. "I want to go, not for the money or whatever it is, but because—" He paused, organizing his thoughts with characteristic precision. "Because I want to show myself that I'm not afraid anymore, that she doesn't have power over me." Pride surged through Ryder, pride at his son's courage and perspective. "Then we'll go together, always together." The following day, while Natalie attended her mother's funeral across town, Ryder received an unexpected call from Detective Walsh. "Mr. Mercer," she began without pleasantries, "I wanted you to hear this from me. We received a letter that you should be aware of." "A letter? From Harrison Vaughn?" Ryder's blood ran cold. "That's impossible." "Apparently not," Walsh replied grimly. "Postmarked from Ecuador last week. It contains detailed allegations about his abduction and ongoing captivity, naming you as responsible." Ryder's mind raced through contingencies. The Ecuador facility was impenetrable, its staff beyond reproach. The letter had to be fabricated or sent by an accomplice. "Detective," he said calmly, "Harrison Vaughn disappeared 2 years ago. I've cooperated fully with your investigation. This is clearly a hoax." "That's what I initially thought," Walsh acknowledged. "But the letter contains details only Vaughn would know, including conversations between the two of you that were never documented in our investigation." "Suggesting what exactly?" Ryder asked, buying time while messaging Miguel to initiate emergency protocols. "I'm not suggesting anything officially," Walsh said carefully. "But unofficially, I've always had questions about Vaughn's disappearance. This letter raises new ones. Have you verified its authenticity?" "We're working on that," Walsh replied. "I thought you deserved to know this development, given your history." After ending the call, Ryder immediately contacted the Ecuador facility. Dr. Marquez confirmed that patient 47 was secure, heavily sedated, and had no access to communication devices or writing materials. "Have there been any staff changes or security breaches?" Ryder demanded. "None, Mr. Mercer. Our protocols remain airtight." A second message from Miguel provided the likely explanation. Stephanie Russo was released to halfway house 3 weeks ago. Limited communications restored. Potential source identified. Pieces fell into place. Stephanie, Harrison's former partner, must have fabricated the letter using details Harrison had shared before his disappearance. Her early release, unexpected but not impossible given overcrowding and her cooperation, had created an unforeseen vulnerability. Ryder immediately activated countermeasures. By evening, Stephanie had been located at her halfway house in Seattle, her communications monitored, her movements tracked. Simultaneously, digital evidence began appearing in law enforcement databases, suggesting Harrison had fled to South America voluntarily, supported by fabricated border-crossing records and financial transactions. The following morning, Detective Walsh called again. "The letter has been determined to be fraudulent," she reported, professional but clearly frustrated. Forensic analysis indicates it wasn't written by Vaughn. We've identified Stephanie Russo as the likely author. I'm relieved this distraction has been resolved, Ryder replied evenly. Lucas and I have worked hard to move forward. Of course, Walsh acknowledged. Though I find the timing interesting, coming just as Natalie receives her first temporary release. Detective, Ryder said with genuine respect. You've always been extremely thorough. I appreciate that. But this chapter of our lives is closed. After ending the call, Ryder met with Miguel and Alexander in the secure room beneath his home, a space unknown even to Lucas. Stephanie remains a liability, Alexander assessed, as does Detective Walsh's continued interest. Walsh is doing her job, Ryder noted. Her suspicions are contained by lack of evidence. And Stephanie? Miguel pressed. Limited options given her supervised release, Ryder mused. But her attempt to resurrect this investigation cannot go unanswered. The following week, on the day of the will reading, Ryder and Lucas arrived at the attorney's office to find a tense atmosphere. Lawrence Winfield was present, disbarred but acting as family friend to Natalie's mother's estate. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Lucas, noting as everyone did how much the boy resembled Ryder despite their lack of biological connection. The will reading proceeded uneventfully. Natalie's mother had indeed established a trust fund for Lucas, accessible upon his 21st birthday or college enrollment, whichever came first. The amount was substantial, but not life-changing. A grandmother's attempt at amends, perhaps. As they prepared to leave, Winfield approached them, his former arrogance replaced by careful deference. Mr. Mercer, might I have a word? Ryder nodded to Lucas to wait by the door, within sight but out of earshot. Make it brief, Ryder instructed. Natalie asked me to give you a message, Winfield said quietly. She wants to apologize to Lucas. Not now, not soon, but someday. When he's ready. That's not going to happen, Ryder replied without hesitation. She's his mother. She forfeited that title when she poisoned him repeatedly over months, Ryder interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. When she threatened him in his silence and conspired with others to continue his suffering. People change, Winfield persisted. Prison has transformed her. She understands what she did was unforgivable, but you're right about one thing, Ryder cut in. It was unforgivable, and it remains unforgiven. Winfield seemed to deflate. I promised her I would try. Consider your promise fulfilled, Ryder replied coldly. And consider this your only warning. Any further attempts to contact Lucas will be met with consequences you cannot imagine. As they left the office, Lucas looked up at his father. What did that man want? To deliver a message that doesn't matter, Ryder answered truthfully. Are you okay? Lucas nodded, surprising Ryder with a small smile. I feel good, actually, like we closed the door. That evening, as Lucas slept peacefully, Ryder received confirmation that Stephanie Russo had suffered a medical emergency at her halfway house, a severe allergic reaction that had required hospitalization. Though she would recover, the incident had triggered a review of her release conditions, with likely return to full incarceration pending investigation of the fraudulent letter. Detective Walsh called one final time, her tone resigned. Stephanie Russo has confessed to writing the letter, she reported. Claims Harrison contacted her from South America, asking her to create confusion ahead of some planned return. We're investigating the communication channels, but it appears to be via third parties. I hope you find him, Ryder said sincerely, for everyone's peace of mind. After ending the call, Ryder sat in his darkened office, considering the chessboard he had constructed and maintained for 2 years. Each potential threat had been neutralized, each loose end tied, each betrayer punished according to their crimes. Natalie would serve her full sentence, her pleas for forgiveness or contact falling on deaf ears. Harrison would remain in his private hell, experiencing daily the suffering he had designed for innocent children. Stephanie, Winfield, and the others would live with the consequences of their choices, their lives diminished beyond recovery. And Lucas would continue to thrive, protected by a father whose devotion recognized no limits and whose justice admitted no mercy for those who had harmed him. Ryder closed his laptop and went to check on his son, watching the gentle rise and fall of Lucas's chest as he slept peacefully, sentinel alert at the foot of his bed. "No mercy," Ryder whispered, a promise renewed. "Not ever. For those who had betrayed them, there would be no redemption, no forgiveness, no second chances. Only the absolute justice of a father who had remade himself into something his enemies had never anticipated. A predator more patient, more thorough, and more implacable than they could have possibly imagined. In the end, that was his true revenge. Not just punishing those who had harmed Lucas, but ensuring they understood, in their final moments of clarity, the fundamental error of their calculations. They had mistaken his civilization for weakness, his patience for vulnerability, his love for exploitability. And in doing so, they had awakened something that would never rest until justice was complete. A father, a protector, a man who would burn the world to ashes before allowing anyone to harm his son again. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.